Yes, she asked me for a divorce. My wife told me that she's not in love with me and she wants a divorce. It was very devastating at that point. Anytime I would go close to her and try to touch her, she would say, I have nothing to give to you. I have no feelings. I'm done with you. I'm here just for the kids.
You just got to be coachable.
Please do us a favor. We know that right now, less than 10% of the guys that are watching this YouTube channel that are getting a lot of help out of it are subscribed. We'd like to get that number up to 50%. Please support the channel and support what we're doing. Subscribe to the channel. Train the algorithm that this is something of value that'll help other men that are in your situation. And please, for yourself, press that bell notification so that the algorithm doesn't suppress the content that we're putting out to help you.
So guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a very special guest joining me. His name is AJ. And AJ volunteered to share his experience of the program, the Divorce Stoppers, and share the successes that he had along the journey in hopes that it might be encouraging to you that maybe feel like you're in a place where your situation seems hopeless. So first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this. And I think let's just probably most appropriate to get started with where you were whenever you and I first met and you joined the Divorce Stoppers program. Can you start there and give me an idea of where were you at mentally with the process of what were you feeling like the direction that your marriage was heading? Did you know that it could be restored? Had you tried anything else? And where in particular, who, what, where, when, and why, and were you whenever I first met you as a student?
So starting from when it actually happened was March 14th of 2024. That's when my wife told me that she's not in love with me and she wants a divorce. And it was very devastating at that point. I always thought we were a strong couple. I didn't knew what was going on since I wasn't aware of this whole psychological part of the marriage. And so that happened on March 14th. That same week, I started to go on the online, checking all the videos, going crazy, didn't know what to do. I couldn't sleep at night. So I found a program before your program and I
What was
joined it.
that?
It's
Well,
the Bulletproof Husband Program, the TBH.
got you. And you joined that program before you met Divorce Stoppers, before you met me,
Yes,
correct?
yes, yes.
So if you
I
don't mind, share your experiences of that program and what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and what ultimately led you to come into the Divorce Stoppers program also.
Okay, sure, sure. So in the TPH program, they have modules, they have stages, and all
Right.
those modules you go through them, and it doesn't tell you how you behave. It works on you, which is great, which I started working on myself.
Yeah.
It also tells me not to put too much pressure, which I was in the beginning, right off the back. I was, you know, like everybody else does. I was putting pressure
Right.
and I didn't see any change. I mean, any interaction I had with her, she was nice. She never was rude or she never screamed. My wife is super, super nice person. So I had no way of figuring it out. I was going through the modules and I was trying to figure out how. And you get a one coach, one call, and then you have to hire the coach and you have to pay them as
Okay.
many times as you want. So anyway, this was March, end of March when I got that. So then April passed, nothing happened. Right around May, I started looking at other videos and I saw Josh Hudson videos and Steve Horseman and all those big names. And I saw your name on it. And what really caught my attention was when in your video you say you don't have to work on your marriage for it to work and you don't have to work on your relationship for it to work.
Yeah.
Working on a relationship actually never works.
Working on a
So
relationship is exactly what will never work. That's what I
no
think.
work. So when I heard that, I stopped everything and I started watching your videos. I actually had 1 hour session with everybody else, like 5 or 6 different coaches.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to talk to Denver and see what he says. Because when I started watching your videos, somehow it made sense to me. My wife at that point was completely checked out. There was no acknowledgement of anything. And I was getting more frustrated.
Share your definition. I'm glad that you touched on that point, and then we'll move forward. But share on your definition of what checked out means concerning your wife.
Oh, anytime I would go close to her and try to touch her,
Yeah.
she would say, I have nothing to give it to you. I have no feelings. I'm done with you. So I'm here just for the kids. That's what she keep repeating. She said, I don't know if you want me to move in summer while we have kids are off the school, or you want me to wait until the end of the year so we can do all of our finances and house and all that stuff. And I
So,
don't
so it sounds like from what you're describing, she was talking about splitting the finances into moving into a permanent dissolution of your relationship, correct?
absolutely.
So she was kind of in the headspace of maybe a divorce or no?
Yes, she asked me for a divorce.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
She
That's where
asked
I
me
thought,
for
but I
the
wanted to
divorce.
confirm that.
So once she said that she wants divorce, I asked her several times, and I asked her about her feelings. Things I shouldn't do, I did. I was trying to work on the relationship, trying to find out where I said I admitted that I was wrong in the marriage last few years. I wasn't a husband you were looking for. But at that point, she said it's too late. If you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago,
Yeah.
it would have been different. We could have gone to a counselor. That's what she said. We could have gone to a counselor. We could have worked on it, but it's too late right now.
So
I
for
have
her, if you
nothing.
backtrack 2 or 3 years, that it had been simmering for at least 2 to 3 years and maybe longer. She was saying 2 to 3 years ago, if you would have asked me if I would have worked on it, then I was willing. Now it's too little too late, right?
Right.
So you guys are still talking, even though maybe the conversations are not positive, playful. But it
No.
sounds like at that point you guys were still talking. Were you doing a separation, in-house separation?
Yes, yes. So she moved to the master bed and I moved to the guest bed. And that's where we stayed. She wouldn't talk much to me. If I ask her a question, she would reply. But when she will sit right next to me at any point, she would make this face. And I asked her, do I make you upset? And she said, yes, you do. And I don't know why. You make me angry.
Yeah.
And when I saw her talking to other people, she's laughing and she's fine. But when she's around me, she was like so like disgusted. And so that raised my desperation more that, what do I do? I need to do something. Anyhow, then I talked to you about, I called you. We had over an hour conversation about it. And
Yeah, we did a
you asked,
strategy session call. Yeah.
yeah. And you actually asked me if Oh, you told me that if you're coachable, if you listen and follow what I tell you, then it's doable. Because I asked you, the first thing I asked you was, can I save it? And you said, absolutely. So that conversation, when you gave me at the end that, absolutely, we can do this, but you have to really, you also told me there's never guarantees, but anyone in your program who has followed the steps has always worked out for you. So I said, okay, I was willing to dive in anything. So I joined the program. And the very first few things I noticed what I was doing wrong was the text messaging thing. That's your first step one. That from right off the back, I was wrong at it because I was writing a long text. I was writing a whatever the heck I was feeling that time. And that was putting pressure on her. And I could see every time she was just, if I had a long conversation with her or text message with her, she would not want to talk to me. Like she would go away or she would not be around me. So that's how it started. And at that point, I had some understanding of the marriage psychology because of the TBH program, but I had no clue how to actually implement that in my life, how to implement it at this stage when I feel like I've lost everything.
I want to ask you two questions. First, not necessarily about TPH program or TBH or whatever it is that you're saying with that. My hearing's not the best, but not necessarily talking about that program, but around 50% of the students in the Divorce Stoppers program come from other programs. And it's always the same story. I was given some information to help me become a better version of myself that made me feel better about myself. Maybe I'm not having thoughts of suicide anymore. It helped me level up a little bit out of being hopeless in my life. But she resents the changes that I've made. So did you experience that like a lot of students when you were in another program? Is one question. And then my follow-up question to that is, when you guys were doing an in-house separation, what did that look like for you? Was that like being in a living hell for you? Was it a living hell for her? Here's one thing in particular I remember that you told me when you first started the Divorce Stoppers program, and that was this: that when I don't remember, it was one of your children when they would come home from school or college or something. I don't remember the exact details because it's been a while.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
remember you telling me that when they were around, she would hide the marriage problems and it would be like you guys were happily ever after. But as soon as they went back to school or left the house or whatever, it was like, okay, it's like I'm living with somebody that, clearly it's not their same relationship when somebody else walks in the door. I remember when I was going through that. And for me, that version of in-house separation was a little bit of like living in a miniature hell of hopelessness. The Bible says, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For me, that was a little bit of walking through the valley of the shadow of death because it was so hopeless being in the same household with somebody that you love and you want to create intimacy, but you don't know what you don't know. And you try all this stuff and you never see it work as far as getting them to want to be part of the relationship, no matter what you do, especially when they come to you and say, I see the changes, but it's too little too late. You should have told me 2 years ago. And you're like, I didn't have any idea there was issues 2 years ago. So two things, as you're going through another program, what was it that didn't work specifically, number one? And what you saw was working to maybe help you make some changes yourself. How did she respond to those? And then what was it like for you doing an in-house separation where it was like, we're faking a happy marriage, which gives you hope. And then your child walks out the door and it's like, oh, we're back to living in hell again. And like, how could she make that change? Which, by the way, I always say this in my videos, the majority of men are married to really, really, really good women who might be doing some really bad things. Less than 1% of the men that I meet find out that they might be married to a bad woman. We now know that you're the majority. You were married to a really, really good woman. But what was it like living in that moment where she was hopeless, so you were paying the price for it? And it's normal for somebody maybe to even try to punish you because they blame you for it. You know what I mean? So I know that was a lot, 3 questions, but if you could visit those, I would be thankful for that because I think so many men is in maybe a little bit different circumstances, but the same environment. And this will be encouraging for other potential students to think, wow, I'm there too. And there is hope.
Okay. So the question number one, which is what was I getting into that program?
Yeah.
So in that program, one of the things which is their first stage is to give the space to your spouse. And that was the hardest thing for me, to give a space, because we were so close. We were doing everything together, even though she was kind of checked out past couple of years. But I was just thinking she is upset with the kids or she's busy. I wasn't putting two and two together. In that program, it was telling us to give a space to your wife so she can heal.
Yeah.
And within the same, now, if we were living separate houses, it would be a different story. But when you're living there, the very first thing she did, like we would always eat dinner together, but then she would go out for kids' games or practice. She would just grab something for kids and then come back.
Yeah.
That's the first thing she did. But I completely fixed that part by asking her every time I would go anywhere to eat my dinner, hey, do you want me to grab you something? So after a few times, she started to feel like she may want to do this too when she's gone out and eat. And then she came back to that stage. Now, coming to the point where you said it was my son from my previous marriage. So when I first got divorced and I got with my current wife, he was only a year and couple of months, so around a year old. So she basically raised him.
Yeah, and she has a close relationship with him. Also.
Very close.
She thinks of him as son, and he thinks of her as mom or
Mother.
right? So
Yes.
so they're close in the relationship. So there's not like
Very
any
close.
resentment because this is like your kid. It was also her kid in her mind. Right.
Right. So she put him in baseball, and then he played for high school varsity, and we used to go and take him to all the ball games. She was very close with him. So when he went to college about 2 years ago, is whenever he wasn't around us. And when this thing happened, when he would come back, she would go back to normal. And during that time, I was in the other program, and I asked the coach at that time, why is it that she is so normal whenever he comes back and she goes? So he says she feels safe around him. She doesn't feel safe around you. So you're not the safe person for her. So anyhow, that was that case, which I guess I also explained to you whenever I first met you, that I don't know. She's not the same person. 5 seconds later, when he's gone, she's a different person again. So anyhow, my whole
So what was it about the coaching you were getting in another program that specifically wasn't working?
so there wasn't any coaching basically.
Was there teaching in it or any, like
Yeah,
that?
it's like modules, it's stages. It tells you
So let
like
me
what.
rephrase that. Let me rephrase it. So I don't necessarily have to get specific about that particular program, but because I hear the same feedback from all programs if it's a student that comes into mine. So we're not necessarily like trying to rat out that program in particular, but the question is, what is it specifically about that program that wasn't working for you, making it about you?
There was no there was a knowledge. So I will explain to you in an easy way. So you go to a med school, you become a doctor, but until you do a residency, you are not a doctor. No matter how 4 years cannot teach you anything what to do unless you practically do stuff.
Sure.
So that was more like a curriculum. Like, these are the things you need to do. These are the things when to do, how to do, where you go wrong, and you can go back and ask them. You had to wait for their weekly call, and then you may or may not get the question answered. And the question answered was more vague, so it wasn't specific to what I needed at that moment.
Okay.
You know,
So it sounds like you're describing that was med school with no residency. So
yes,
if you're so it sounds like psychologically you're comparing that program is med school with no residency, and then you met me and we put you immediately into the residency program.
correct. So in this case, I didn't have to go to med school. I was put directly into work, more like a residency for me. Like,
Okay.
it put me in practice. So here's what good thing happened was that whatever I read or whatever I got from the TBH, I had a understanding, little basic understanding of uh, the distance, and but I never had an understanding of communication. Communication was one of the major things because I was blowing up the phone. I was texting her a lot. So when I
Well,
started,
it sounds like you were communicating plenty.
yes, more than I was needing to.
So when you talk about once you joined the residency that we call the Divorce Stoppers program that I run, the first step in the Divorce Stoppers program, I'm a strong advocate against no contact and giving her space. My definition of space is if somebody's extremely angry, to give them a few hours to cool off. That's my definition of space. You can never restore a marriage or build intimacy by giving somebody space, especially in long-term space. That's just foolishness. The mindset that absence makes the heart grow fonder, it doesn't. Absence makes the heart get comfortable being alone and by themselves, and it will destroy the marriage. So you were already communicating plenty. So what changed for you in the Divorce Stoppers program around communication?
Yeah, I'll tell you that. So after like 8 or 5 or 10 lines of my text, I would get a one word or one line response. Her response was just enough to answer my question in a yes or no, or so I wasn't getting anything back from her, like she wasn't communicating.
That's when I met you, right?
Yes, that's when you met me, and that's what I was doing. I was just texting a long text messages, and I was getting a one response of yes or no, or maybe, or a one line if she had to write it. So basically, she was avoiding the text.
So you were texting in the feminine and she was responding in the masculine as I teach.
But then I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Then when I figured that out, it didn't take me probably a few days that my text first got really short.
Yeah.
And I didn't text too often, and I put emojis. I had a hard time putting emojis in the beginning, I admit that. And I think our first meeting, you actually saw my text and you said you need to see at least have 1 to 2 on one page of your phone. I need to see emojis, and I worked on them. Uh, and at some point, this it started to shift towards where she started texting. When I wouldn't text her for 2 3 hours, she would text me to ask me a question, and I would answer it, but it'd be very very specific. And I kept going through. I forgot that you had a. I think it's a 1.2.
Yes. And what you're talking about is I taught, so the beginning of the program is I have you in med school. So I'm teaching communication, and it's not just about shortening the messages up, it's about communicating in the masculine and
Yeah,
wording your words so that each text message is a powerhouse of art where it evolves the communication into making your wife go from resistant and confirming the bias that she has against you with just changing your wording by slowing down on your response and actually reading what she's saying instead of just responding because she's expecting it, where you're reading what she's saying in a way that your responses are short but masculine, but they're inviting her to come back in because you're giving her a positive dopamine fix in the communication by conveying to her, I read your message in a way I've never read you before, which is telling her, I see you and I value your words, which means I value you as a person. And that's what I mean when I say become a 1% of a 1%, 1% of 1% man in this program. So many people just absolutely think it's ludicrous. They think it's a sales pitch. When I say in the YouTube videos, in the Divorce Stoppers program, if your marriage is heading for a divorce, I like to describe it because about 70% of my students are in the United States. And so it's easy to picture this picture that if your train that your wife is driving is heading to Mexico City, and if it reaches Mexico City, she's remarried to another man, and the door closes to the relationship forever. So right now, a lot of the men that are watching this video, their wife has already filed for a divorce, and she's living with her boyfriend, and they think it's too late. But if she's not remarried, we can use that boyfriend because I can teach you how to build intimacy, how to make her feel seen, heard, and valued through building intimacy and communication via text. And her boyfriend hasn't been through my training. So he will start to like get jealous of her relationship with you. She's rekindling and start putting the pressure on her and start bombarding her with these long 5-page text messages and shove her back to you. Now, in your case, that wasn't the issue. But I bring that up to ask you this question. Is it far-fetched to think that the train that's heading to Mexico where you're divorced and she's remarried, can we put the brakes on the train and put it in reverse where it's fully going back the other direction toward reconciliation and restoration in 7 days, which is always the goal? Now, I didn't say fully restore the marriage. I said, can we stop the train and completely put it in reverse where by the first week, you're like, dang, bro, I know the train's going the other direction. Is that possible? And did it happen for you?
yeah. So I don't know the exact time when the shift happened, but I know for a fact because I think I joined your program in June, and I did tell you that in July we are going on a vacation. And you said you have plenty of time to turn the train around, and by then, uh, you will be intimate with your wife at the vacation time. So I was determined. Uh, I was hopeful. When at that moment of your life when you're so down,
Yeah.
any encouragement lifts you up because you. And then the Facebook group. Anytime you have and that was something which was missing in TBS too. You had nobody to share this thing. The only time you get to share it is in a group. Whenever you go in a group discussion, that's the only time you will have the coach encourage you. Here you have one win and you write it down, even though some of the wins are, you have to think positive. And another thing which I learned is you have to think positive. Every small thing which happens is a win. And you have to share because somebody else may be looking for something like that, and they'd be like, yeah, that happened to me too. So that was really encouraging for me. I would say Sharing your win is one of the best things which happened to me because I got so pumped up. If anything good happened, I would just go on the Facebook and type something like this is a win. And then everybody else will comment on it and you feel encouraged. And it boosts uh, your ego and it gets you more willing to do more things. And I think it's a positive thing. So going back to the question about reversing the train, I think it was probably around week 2 that she was texting back with more lines than she ever did before.
When you're doing something that doesn't just change yourself, but it causes someone else to change, that's where you've turned the train around.
Right, right. I became more hopeful I can save the marriage at that point.
Yeah.
And I knew that I'm in this for a long run because my wife, each one of your videos in which you were talking about you advise somebody and they asked you to they wanted different because they had different circumstances. Their wife personality was different. So my wife's personality is she has hard time making decisions and she takes very long time to make a decision. She just doesn't have much decision power, I guess. So I knew that if she wants to change her decision from filing for divorce and moving out, it's going to take time. And I was okay with it. As long as the trajectory was uphill, I was okay with it. And I didn't want to push it. And then also in your video, when you say, you are up there and your wife is down there and you need to come, she's not coming to you. You got to come down to her. And it made sense that I had to drop my ego. I have to stop arguing. I have to totally change my personality, which is working on yourself, not on the marriage. It will slowly make her see you. My first vacation was actually Colorado, and she didn't want to, but she went with us. As a family, we went there.
Yeah.
And things were starting to change to the point where I was really hopeful then that I can make this happen now. And from there on, everything was positive. Everything was positive. Everything was uphill. That you asked me at that point when we came back to start the touch charges, and then the story went on from there.
You know what? You know what I really love? I love that. I love that you're saying everything was uphill, but and you're saying that because that's what's been ingrained in our DNA as men. That to reach the top, to reach our goals, that the goals are the accomplishment is at the top of the hill. And in all areas of life, I can understand because we have wanted to go from destination A to destination B. Even when I was living in Brickell in Miami, the first thing my real estate agent said when I said, I want to be like, I want the best of the best when I lived there. I don't live there anymore. I haven't lived in there a long time, but he's like, well, it's at the top because as men, the best is at the top. But when you're working to restore a relationship, I love that you caught on, that you're sharing that in the video, that you're already at the top and she doesn't want to be there with you. She's at the bottom where it's peaceful and enjoyable, making her own decisions. And she feels like now that I'm down here by myself in this separation, I'm starting to blossom as a woman without him. The grass is greener on the other side. I feel it. And that's why I'm a strong advocate, and I actually have some righteous anger around the teachings of give her space, give her space, give her space, do no contact, because that just gets her used to having zero intimacy with her, and there's no pressure, when she has that space. Well, that's comfortable. That's confirming with her, I have peace in separation. There is no peace in the relationship. And so doing it the hard way is what doesn't work. Climbing up the relationship mountain and fighting for it, there's a way to do that. And people have been known to restore their relationships that way, but it takes so much longer. You have been dealing with this long enough that, of course, you didn't need it to happen as fast as I say things should happen. You didn't need the train to be turned around in a week, but you saw that actually happen because your leadership that you learned in this program became real, and you literally started the process of changing her in your first week. And so many people get caught up on the mindset of, if I make enough changes, then she'll want me back. And here's the fact. You can change all you want. Unless she changes, there is no relationship restored. That's when you see men that are facing divorce. They literally become the best husband on the face of the planet, the best option for her. Everything she hated about him, he has changed, and they still get a divorce, and she marries another man that is like not even anything in comparison to the guy she divorced, because the man didn't understand how to lead her back into the relationship, because he was simply dealing with confirmation bias, which is a very real thing. And if you don't know how to lead somebody out of that to change themselves, it's game over. And so this program is designed to turn the tides, not fully restore the relationship, in that first week. In that first week. Because if we don't start making progress, making things better, they are progressively getting worse. The train's progressively getting closer to Mexico City. She's driving it. It might be damaging to her if it reaches the destination, but she doesn't see another path until somebody shows her the other path, which you just acknowledged. You showed your wife another path within around 7 to 10 days.
Right, right.
All right. So let's talk about this. As you're making progress, it is very normal for the woman, because right now, as of today, my students are only men, because I help men help their wives. I help wives, but I do it through the leadership of the men. So it is very normal that you see the relationship train stops, the brakes are on, and it goes in reverse. And then she starts getting nervous as you're making progress back to restoration, and she starts testing you. She starts psychologically gaslighting you. She comes and she presses all your buttons, and we call this the desert season. So for a few weeks, you see win after win after win after win after win, and it's amazing. And you're part of a community that we call Iron Sharpens Iron. That's where you can collaborate with the other students, share your experience, and get the feedback from those students on if they're 2 or 3 weeks ahead of you or a month ahead of you. So they can come in and say, oh, this is where I was at. When I was facing this, I did this. And I like it that we're calling it Iron Sharpens Iron, because it's winners helping winners win. And at least in my experience of what we're hearing from students that come from other programs, or even if they're not in a program, maybe they're in a Facebook support group, particularly in Christian communities, which is heartbreaking because I'm a Christian, where concerning the marriage, they want to call I'm standing for my marriage. But if you read what's going on in those groups, it's losers helping losers feel good and encouraging them to feel good about losing. I'm praying for you, brother. You got this. When in fact that almost 100% of their marriages are failing because they don't know what they don't know, and they're not aligning their actions with their faith because they're not seeking wisdom from somebody that's been in their shoes and taken the train to go where they want to go. And it's so heartbreaking to see that. But here's my question for you. As you started seeing the wins, you started posting and how encouraging it was to see the progress. Like, I see the train. This is the result. She's texting me different. Look at these messages. How encouraging. And you're encouraging brothers that started a week after you, 2 weeks after you. And you're telling the new guys, my situation was hopeless. I did another program that made it worse. And I've been in this program for a week, and look at this. So stick with it. Do what he's telling. It's uncomfortable. It's the opposite of what you're thinking. It's aligning your actions with your goals, because it is not what I was feeling. And so you see all of these wins. Then we come to the desert season, and you're still having wins. The reason I call it the desert season is the marriage is still making progress, and the train is still heading back to restoration, to vacations in Colorado and Disney World and wherever else, cruises. But you don't see those during the testing phase. And it's very normal. It is part of the psychological process. When a woman has confirmation bias, as you lead her out of that, she will get quiet for a season as she's changing. And I even thought about at one point renaming the desert season as the cocoon phase. But for the student, for you, it feels like the desert because you're not seeing the winds. But in fact, you have psychologically led her to be in a cocoon, and she's processing and evolving and changing as the confirmation bias is dissolving. That's really what it is. So here's my question. As you were making these changes, she was coming to you during the desert season, probably making you believe or testing you that she wasn't necessarily believing that the marriage could be saved. Now, I don't know if that's your experience, but it's most men's experience. Even though it's still being restored, can you share, was that part of your experience? And if it wasn't, I'll have my video editor cut out the last 2 minutes that I was talking.
So yes and no. So yes, in a way that I took her out. This is after the trip to Colorado. I took her out for lunch, and actually it was dinner, early dinner, and she didn't want to go, but when she got there, and she starts talking about again, moving out and all that stuff, and she had a sip of a drink, and then it kind of loosened her up, and she starts crying there. So we finished dinner. I said, let's talk after we finish dinner, so that way we are not here. And we get in the car, and I thought everything was working in a good direction, but it was the same story she was repeating again.
Yeah.
That I want to move out, I don't want to be here, and I'm here for the kids. It was the same repetition of the same thing. So I knew at that point I had to be strong. I had to take it as is her emotion speaking right now. Uh, when I talk to you on those calls, one-on-one calls, uh, you asked me a few questions about her, and then you said, as she is coming in, she will still keep telling you she is actually going back into the marriage, but she will tell you, no, I'm not. We are not together. I'm leaving. Exactly that thing was happening. She was doing things more for me, which she didn't do before. She was doing my laundry. She was doing all those things again. But in her mouth, she was saying, I want to leave. I want a divorce. Somewhere in August, towards the end of August, she stopped saying the divorce part. And then she never used that word again. But she was still distant. And she wouldn't talk much, but she would talk. And I think towards September, October is where she started being a little nicer. Like she was more smiling. And one day I asked her out. Like I said, before I would just take her out for dinner, but I said, I asked her out on a date.
Okay.
And she said, no, let me think about it. Let me think about it. She said, I really don't want to lead you on this. And I said, it's just a date, going out, having fun. We'll just go have fun and we'll come back and I have a babysitter. And she said, let me think about it. And then as she goes on the bed and starts talking about that she doesn't want to lead me into anything, she doesn't say divorce this time. She said she doesn't have feelings, so she doesn't know that if she goes out with me, it will hurt my feeling. I said, no, it's not going to hurt my feeling, because by then I had gone through the steps and I was acting as cool as one can be. I had that 20-pound Valium in me, like I am completely cool. I had a smile on my face. I was so calm. And she said, you have changed the very first week. And I did change the very first week. But she said, you have not pivoted back. And she said something about that she sees that I have changed. But she said it's a little late because, I've been asking you all this time and you haven't changed. So she didn't say anything about it will be good for your new woman, because sometimes I heard in the stories that they will say,
Yeah, of course.
but they didn't say that. But I had this another hope that she has seen my change and she is acknowledging it and she knows that I haven't pivoted back. So I need to stay on the course, and I need to stop worrying about her coming back. I need to stop worrying about the marriage. I just need to do what I'm doing and just continue doing what's working.
Not being married to outcomes. Yeah.
Not being married. Yes. So one of the interactions I had, I did say to her that it's okay. I'm not married to the outcomes. It just came out of my mouth. And she kept thinking,
You
she
heard
couldn't
that so
think
much,
what it
huh?
was. Yeah, she didn't know what it was. But but this came out of my conversation because I heard that so many times. I just said it there. And I planned another vacation in November, right around the Christmas time, in Branson, because it's pretty, it's nice. And my goal was that that's where it's going to happen. And so we went to Branson. Everything was way better than in Colorado trip. It was way up. So from where we were way closer. And everything was over there like we used to be. And I kept thinking, okay, is it restored or it's not? What do I do now? What is the next step? And so I again booked a coaching call with you. And I think at that time, Brandy was with you at that time. And you guys advised me to whatever you're doing at this point, just keep doing it. It's working. It's taking the time, but at least it's going into a positive direction. And from there on, it just kept going in a positive direction. She kept coming closer and closer. We were sitting in the dinner. She was starting to joke around, and she was more responsive. She will laugh. On my text messages, her response were different this time. And throughout December, I was feeling like marriage is restored, but we were not intimate then. That happened in January in one of the massages I was giving, and
Right.
that's
The
where
touch charges.
I
Talk charges
the
and touch
touch charges. Yes, that's when it happened. I and then the thing is, this is the start. You never stop. You can never go back to yourself. You always have to constantly make sure that you don't pivot. You make sure that you keep a check on yourself. And I think from here on, it's going to keep building on to uh, where I will say the marriage is completely 110% back to normal. So right now we're living like we are married. We're hanging out. We are doing things like married. So I look back 8 or 9 months ago to now where she wanted a divorce to now we are planning our vacations. We are doing things again together. It's a day and night.
Let me ask you a question. So first of all, congratulations in your leadership. I love that you're acknowledging something that I talk a lot about when I just do YouTube videos to help men, when I'm not doing client success stories. That what makes the Divorce Stoppers program radically different. And tell me if this is your experience. And it's okay to be honest. And I'm not going to have my video editor cut this part out, no matter what you say. Obviously, I hope you say what I think you're going to say, but if you don't, it's okay. What makes this program, when I developed this program came from, I was the first student in this program. My wife was out of the marriage. I was facing a second unwanted divorce. And I just like, this has got to be fixed. And so I don't know what happened, but did you see the birthday balloons just go up on the screen?
Balloons.
I don't know what,
Yeah,
I don't know
they
what the fuck is up with that, but the AI must have heard something and thought we should celebrate because I said congratulations. So there's your official congratulations, AJ. Like,
thank you.
congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Okay. It's amazing what AI can do, right? My heart, when I started this version in this program, in the way, the format and the framework that we teach it today, which we've been teaching it similar to this for the last 11 years, is that what makes this program radically different is that it immediately starts the process of not just changing the man, but teaching the man a different type of leadership. So at the same time you're making these changes, your wife is also changing. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Can you, so in my mind, this program is basically teaching you how to become a psychological expert within the realm of communication and intimacy building on how to see, hear, and value your spouse while at the same time absolutely not needing a relationship with anyone on this earth to be happy and content with yourself, which removes the pressure off of your wife, which allows her the freedom to fail, fall, and fuck up, as I like to say, the three F's. When you give a woman permission to fail, fall, and fuck up without showing up to say, this is how we fix it, that's how she matures and blossoms in your garden. And this is literally what makes the grass greener on your side. in your garden. Would you agree with that assessment? If you want to add anything to that, I'm open to it.
Okay, so I will make a comment here on the part of letting her blossom. So in the program, what I learned was a different kind of giving space, a space where I don't ignore her, but I see her. Before I would try to fix the problems for her, I would just go in, oh no, you should have done this one, or I would just keep giving her options because my mind works that way.
Because you loved her,
But
you wanted to help her, but it made her feel controlled, right?
yes, the control part is one of our conversation in the beginning when she was living. She was mentioning that how controlling I was. Well, I was in a lot of terms, and I completely pulled my control off. I never would get her opinion in certain things. But again, some of the things which you have to lead instead of directing. I would say you have to. The end result would be the same, but she will feel like she was a part of it too. uh, I was strict in a lot of the things in the house, which were basically not necessary, and I completely pulled off of that part. But the part where she actually started to appreciate was that I have stopped being that controlling and criticizing. The condemning, criticizing part of it, the three C's,
Yeah.
I stopped doing that. I've started to acknowledge her more, which she started seeing that, if she did anything for me or anything in the house, I would acknowledge it. That made her feel good that I'm acknowledging it. Before it was just a thing. Okay, she's doing her thing, I'm doing my thing. We are both in the marriage, we are working on it. But I think the acknowledging part really helped me pull her towards me because now she knew that I am seeing her. Uh, so that's my part on this one.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And what you're also is confirming is, as of the date of this recording of this video, the world is very political. And so I can throw this out here. It doesn't mean I live in Puerto Rico, so we don't vote for president here of any country. I'm not allowed to vote. One of the reasons I moved here is there's no taxation in Puerto Rico. Without taxation, you can't vote for representation, which that's okay with me. But one of the things that I want to acknowledge is the first thing that we do is teach you how to make marriage fun again. I'll say that as a joke. Make marriage fun again. The reason that I'm bringing that up, though, is this. Whenever you're facing a failed marriage or a divorce, there are usually emotional scars that are going to have to be dealt with. There's trauma. There's betrayal. There's lies. There's deceit. There's hurt. And it could be the woman's inflicted it. It could be the man's inflicted it. But if she wants a divorce, we're just focusing on what the man's inflicted. And that could be a realm of a million different things. You didn't make her feel heard, valued, and seen. You made her feel like a girl. She didn't feel like a woman with you because you loved her enough to help her, and it made her feel like a daddy and shut her down. A million different things it could be. As you're leading a woman back into the relationship, we start off with building intimacy with communication, and you give her the dopamine of that to the point that she gets addicted to communication with new relationship histories with you that are positive, that make her feel seen, valued, and heard. This causes anybody to want to follow that leadership. But what's radically different about this program than marriage counseling, you're about to hear AJ's closing remarks on his advice to any man that's facing an unwanted divorce or a separation forever, regardless of all of the circumstances that we just named off in this video. If she's filed for a divorce, if you're in a separation, if she has a boyfriend, if you've already got a legal divorce, is there hope for you? You're about to hear AJ's advice, but I want to give you some free help right now before you hear that advice. And I want you to pause the video after I give you the instructions, go do this, and then come back. First, I want you to subscribe and also hit the bell notification so that as we post new videos like this to help you, you're notified because the algorithm has been suppressing them. Secondly, my video editor is going to put a follow-up video to this at the end of it. Make sure and watch that. But what I'd like you to do right now is pause the video and go register for our free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass at denvergriffin.com/masterclass, or you can just go to denvergriffin.com and click on yes, register for the masterclass. Right now, I only have limited seats available this week. So the reason I'm telling you to pause the video right now is because those seats fill up fast. If you go do that and the seats are already full, save that website and check back every 2 or 3 days and somebody might reschedule or a seat will open up. Go ahead and now pause the video and go do that. and then come back to us and listen to what AJ would recommend you do. What's radically different about this program than marriage counseling is that the first thing that a marriage counselor wants to do is go talk about the problems. And when you're facing a divorce and a woman is already in the mindset of, I want a divorce, marriage counseling almost always helps her confirm she needs the divorce because you already have a failed relationship where it's not strong enough to discuss issues. And you immediately start talking about the problems, and it makes everybody feel bad, and you leave those sessions feeling drained. Ask me how I know. Because I went through a divorce in my first marriage. That marriage was over 2 decades. It ended because of marriage counseling, 100%. It ended because of marriage counseling. But that doesn't mean that that stuff doesn't have to be addressed. Do you remember in the program, did you have shit that needed to be dealt with when I teach you that the smart timing of when to deal with that and how to take the wrongs that you've wronged her, and actually we do that in the 4th week in the program. We call it step number 8, and we actually use the things that the world wants to come remind her that you did wrong, which is intended to harm your marriage. We use that stuff to build intimacy to actually make the marriage stronger. So did that build intimacy for you? Did you walk that walk in the 4th week in step number 8?
Okay, before I answer that question about the counseling part, through my work, whenever you are stressed or you have a problem, you have a way of going through a counseling service. In my work, I utilize that. I utilize that right before your program also.
Okay.
And she had me write down our problems, what the problems were, and she wanted me to see if my wife would come in also, and we can discuss and we can deal with them. And whenever I started your program, it dawned on me that when you say that working on the problems in a relationship doesn't work, and that's what I was asked to write down all the things which I did wrong, and all the things which were problem thing. So that contradicted right there. You're right on that part. And it would have caused more serious talks between us, more resentment build up. And it makes complete sense that that resentment is the reason first that I am there. That resentment, if I'm going to scratch that again, is going to get boiled up and she's going to explode again. So I'm not building a relationship with her now. I'm just creating another, pouring gasoline on the fire. So that part I never discussed in the entire 6-7 months. If she would take it over there, I would just change the subject or get out of the way or do something where I would divert the attention. We don't talk about it. She blamed a lot of the times, oh, you used to do this. And I would agree. Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Because I learned in the program that you just agree with her at that point. So I wanted to mention this.
Clarify my definition of agreement. You not agree with her, but you agree with her negative feelings, and then you explain why you agree with the negative feelings. That way she feels seen, heard, and valued. Because if she really feels that way, they are true. I don't necessarily ever encourage anybody to necessarily agree with someone, but to agree with their feelings, that's an action step that makes sense to make you level up as a 1% man. But go ahead, sorry.
Great. And that was in the intimacy letter too. So whenever I wrote my intimacy letter, I explained all the things I did wrong and why I did wrong and what am I doing right now to fix them. And it was a great, and I didn't mention about the intimacy letter. That was also a pivoting point where her attitude for a couple of days, no, but after a couple of days changed dramatically. That was something which, whenever I see on our Facebook group, you have to, whenever you write that letter, it has to come from your heart. It doesn't have to be too good of a format, but it has to come, because when you read it, because every single time I read it, even I read it 10 times, every single time I had tears. So if you have the letter that way, this is going to have an impact on your wives, because they do literally see you, that when you are saying it to it, you're being honest at that moment, and you are opening up to her. And then in my case, she didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She did say thank you at the end. And then she got quiet for 2 days. And after that, I saw a change, that her attitude was so good that was another pivoting point for her, where she became more happier and much more forgiving than before. So
Yeah, that's the reason we call that the intimacy letter, and that's the reason that we don't do that in the program until there has been enough new relationship histories of restoration that you're ready for it, because it takes you a month to get yourself positioned psychologically so you can even see yourself, number one. But it takes her a month to be in a position to read that. I want to ask your opinion on something, okay? We get a lot of students that come from other programs, and when they get to step number 8 in the 4th week in the program, they're like, oh, yeah, before they actually take the module and take the teaching. They're like, I wrote an apology letter in another program, so we've already done that. So let me ask you, let me ask you this question. Could you even imagine not going through that module and receiving that training, not only where I train you how to write that, but where I give you an example? So I give you the college education, and then I put you through, what'd you call it earlier?
residency.
I put you through the residency so you understand both before you actually do it. Could you even imagine if I just said, hey, today we're going to write an apology letter, and I didn't give you the training and the residency? Would that actually work to change her and restore the marriage if you just wrote an apology letter for everything you done that you did wrong? Tell me the understanding around how that letter was radically different because of the training of the timing and the way that I taught concerning communication, on the way that it made her feel heard, valued, and seen, which you know because it changed her in 3 days as she processed it.
See, in the letter you mentioned each time, I see how you felt.
Yeah.
She feels like she is understanding. So I did in TBH. I did the apology
Did
letter.
it truly help you see how your past actions honestly made her feel in a way that helped you see her through eyes that you had never seen her through before?
Absolutely.
That part of the program is designed to take you to soulmate level. Did it help you get there?
Absolutely. I tell you that before, in my mind, she is a wife, she is a mother, she is doing her part. I'm a husband. I go out, I work, I come back home. I'm doing my part. I never acknowledged what she went through on each. So writing that letter, I actually first started to monitor what she does all day, starting from the beginning of the day when she wakes up, gets ready, gets the kids ready, takes them to school. Every single thing she did, I wrote it. And then I went through it in my mind that if I was to do it, because she does a lot of the sports things for the kids and school activities. She takes care of everything. To me, it wasn't a big deal. It was just a school thing. But when I actually dissected it by hour, morning, noon, evening, afternoon, and the evening, what she does, it made me realize that when she used to tell me that I am so stressed, I would just ignore her because I didn't even acknowledge that stress. I didn't know what she's talking about.
You didn't know
So
what
made
you
me
didn't know.
realize,
Nobody had taught you how to see her, right?
yes, I didn't know how to actually see what she's doing, dissecting it in each section of the day and making her understand that I know you are going through this.
Yeah.
I'm your team. Just when she feels like you are a part of her team, things change because then she knows that she will work the same way. But it's good to have that understanding. Just like whenever on the Facebook, you're doing, the wins are there for you. But when you go there and you post your wins and then everybody acknowledges, it just makes you feel good. Nobody understands that part. I didn't understand in the beginning. Why am I putting my wins over there? But then as I was putting my wins and I was reading other people win, I was actually getting encouraged. And that encouragement goes every day, 24/7, because you can get on the Facebook anytime you want.
Yeah.
And you can see a bunch of people writing their wins, and you can see that how their wives are behaving and how they are actually dealing with it. You get different perspectives. So it's very helpful. It's like an entirely different program happening to you in a practical form. along with your program, which you're doing.
I love that. Let me ask you a follow-up question. Since you're talking about the encouragement that you get to continue the change, but also maybe some enlightenment on changes that you're making and to help you make those changes and seeing the other students where everybody in the whole program is winning. Every single marriage is being restored. And if somebody gets stuck, we're all here to make sure that they do a pattern interrupt, that there's a pivot so they don't stay in that place. Let me ask you this. How helpful and encouraging it was to you. I saw you attend a lot of the coaching calls where you would just listen to me coach the other students, where maybe you didn't request a coaching call that day, but you still showed up to listen to me coach other students. Share your experience of that if that was beneficial to you. No right or wrong answer to that. If you say no, it's okay, but I would like to know some feedback from you on that.
Okay, so in the beginning, if you noticed, in the beginning, I had questions, and I had multiple questions.
Yeah.
And I realized that some of my questions were already even asked already, or they were in the session. So after that, what I did, I started getting in the coaching calls and just listen. And if I had something really where I didn't know at all what I'm gonna do, if I do this, it will go wrong, I will ask it. Otherwise, I was thinking that's another form of coaching. Like I tell you, the Facebook group is a form of coaching because you have so many different perspectives. As a matter of fact, you see somebody who's going through way worse and they are still there posting their wins. And then you feel like, okay, my condition is not that bad. And then you feel encouraged, okay, I can do this better. And I'm sure there is so many different versions of each person's divorces or the
Yeah, because you see them. You see
separations.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, you see them. So in the coaching calls, I would say if you don't have a question, if you just hear them, it's another, like your YouTube is there, your Facebook is there, your coaching program is there, but the coaching call is a live, real, real in real time problems which people are having,
Yeah.
which one of them you could be having, and you'll get your answer over there. Or sometimes you don't know the direction of certain things, but you are too busy to ask at that moment, but you forgot about it, but somebody else asked. So now you are like, oh, okay. If this is what happens to me, I'm already prepared. I need to respond like this. So I personally think as many coaching calls one can make should make it. I most of your coaching calls were during my work time. So I would put in my headphones on my and I would listen as I'm going through. So that's my say on the coaching call.
I love that. So I have one additional question here, unless I think of something else. So your experience in your marriage, all marriages are dealing with different issues, but I would say probably 100% of all of our new students, their wife or their lover is in full blown confirmation bias. That's what radically makes the success rate in the program where everybody is winning and we're encouraging everybody else to win. So it's winners helping winners win. Because the paradigm shift that's required to take place in your wife's mind, if she doesn't change her mind, no marriage. So you already want the marriage when you're coming to the program. So yes, we change you, but the goal of the program is to change you next level in your masculine leadership, but also to lead her in the feminine where it's a safe place to do that. Even if it's an alpha woman. When I'm at my wife's an alpha. She was a six-figure business owner, had her shit together. She did not need a husband to contribute to her life, to support her in any way, but she wanted intimacy with a man. You see all of the other students. So you see men because you're seeing their posts as they're having their wins. They're stacking up their wins. So every relationship is being restored. But you see a lot of men that were facing challenges that you weren't. Their wife left them. They legally got a divorce. They're in an active restraining order, or their wife is living with another man. That's her boyfriend. I don't take on students if somebody has an ex-wife that's remarried. That's against my values, so I don't take on students in that situation. But I do say that even if you've already had a legal divorce, that even if she's already separated, even if she has a boyfriend, even if she's living with another man, you there you see the students that are walking in all of that because you see the post and they're sharing it. And we have a space that it's completely safe to be vulnerable no matter what the experience. You even see some students now, because of the where the world is going with porn addictions, even some people that in the past had struggled with same-sex attraction and messed up their marriage and they want to save it. So we see like there's nothing off the limits that we talk about how to get rid of the confirmation bias, how to build intimacy, how to restore the marriage. Here's my question. If somebody's watching this video today of your experience and you've had an inside look at your marriage, the restoration process, you going from something that seemed hopeless and then to now full intimacy and full restoration, but also witnessing other students who they are physically separated, they are physically divorced, and their wives have a boyfriend, she's having an affair, she has a limited affair partner, or she's even moved in with another man, and you're seeing the other students walking through that, what would you tell a man that's either in another program, trying to figure out how to do this on his own? He's got counseling, he's listening to his friends, his preacher. He feels hopeless because either he nor anyone he knows that's in his friends or family network has ever seen a marriage that's in that situation ever be restored. What would you tell that man if he's watching this video to do?
Okay.
Can this
So
work
the
for
first
him?
thing is in this group, the Facebook group, you have every scenario possible with everybody, every scenario. And seeing those scenarios, some of them who had really, if you go back in their posts and if you see them where they were, you pick anybody, which I have actually. Some are slower than the other ones,
Yeah.
but there is always a upward trajectory on everyone's relationship when they post things over the time. So when I said in the beginning of this conversation that you can have any program out there. It's like a course, like a med school. I just use the term med school.
Makes sense.
But as long as somebody doesn't take you into the real application of this, guides you how to behave besides just the education, you wouldn't get anywhere. And more more to that in this program, which is I have seen is one more gentleman who is going through it, is you have so many different avenues to learn. If you have the will, if it is up to me, if it is to be, it is up to me, right? When we say that,
Yeah, if it is
if
to
it
be,
is
it's
up
up
to
to me.
me, yeah, if it is to be, it's up to me. So up to me is how much willing are we to? You have to determine first. If you are really wanting to have this happen and you really want to do this, then there is plenty of education, guidance, examples, which is the most important thing. Whenever you're in school, you learn something and then they give you a lot of examples to work on. The questions. So you can go through each and every scenario. There will be one or two or three scenarios which will be just like yours. And you go back in them and you will see how they have transformed themselves. None of the things out there teaching probably are wrong, but then I told you that why this program worked for me is because I didn't have to do much. Seriously, honestly, I didn't. I just had to do less, but I had to do it the right way. I had to not stress out. I didn't stress out. My work, my sleep, everything came back. The only thing I was worried about is if at any stage, if I pivot back, I need to be very, very conscious in the first few weeks. So I am in the program doing the things and I don't pivot in any stage because you can be doing 100 things right and that one thing wrong. I learned from the module, you do one thing wrong and she has confirmation bias. She will gonna, and I didn't do anything wrong, but I did say some things where she brought it up. Hey, you didn't say this before. Now you're saying this. It made me realize that all day long, everything is fine, but you pick one thing, which I said before. So I knew that I have to be very careful. So in this program, you learn things which are practical, which actually work. It's just not theory. Theory can be anywhere. You can read books. There's tons of books out there. But here you see examples along with your practical, your examples and other people's examples. So your scenario can be any scenario. You will find a person there, something close to you. And I had like three or four who were going in home separations, just like mine. And then when you hear their wins or you read their wins, you feel encouraged. And I'm telling you this thing, encouragement is the most important thing in any program or in anything when you are working hard, whether it's sports, whether it's anything in your life. If you have people encouraging you and you are following what other people are doing in the similar situation, and then you comparing yourself, maybe you're not doing something which they are doing and you pick up things from them.
Yeah.
It's kind of men sharpens iron is the exact example of it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the reason every time you'll hear me say, and you'll hear the other coaches say, after every one on one coaching session, where we're doing that where the other students can hear, because we're all in it together to support each other. That's why you always hear me end every coaching session with you and all the other students of, okay, 2 questions before I let you go. Do you feel good about the coaching? And what's your action steps? And you have to
Yes.
respond because I want to make sure you're very clear that you got what you needed out of this coaching session and you have specific action steps that as soon as you're off this call, you're going to go do it. And then the third thing is, all right, share your wins because we want to know that this worked. That way you don't get scared and not do it because we're aligning your actions with your goals, which sometimes would you say are a little bit radically different. Did I ever give you a coaching session that was radically different than what you felt like you should do, but you did it anyway?
No,
No.
I was so much involved in my head that if I follow what he's saying, whether it's wrong, whether I don't believe in it,
Yeah.
but I've seen results in the past in the because I've read several posts where
You
you
were a good
know
student of the other students, so you knew if I gave you a coaching, it was
yeah,
going to work because they said in their posts, in their wins, I was scared to do this, but guys, listen, do it because you saw their like I saw that you were a great student of the students, which helped you make progress like clockwork. Anything else that you want to share? Like just think about the purpose of this video is to encourage somebody today that's hopeless. They feel like their situation is hopeless concerning their relationship or their marriage because it's just such a bad place. Is there anything else that you would like to share while you have the stage to help that brother?
so here's my input on this one. I was hopeless. I never had in my dreams thought that I will be in that stage where I was on March 14th of last year. I thought my whole life was shattered. I didn't have any hope. I couldn't sleep. I told you my chest was hurting. I couldn't sleep. I was just devastated that what can I do? Here is one thing. If you have the will, and if there is a direction right there, but if you have the will to do it, there is a way. There is saying going on that if there's a will, there is a way. Practically in life, in my entire life, even I have a martial art background and I have always been very consistent in doing things. This is the most difficult thing I've ever done is going through a divorce. But the program made it so easy for me. This is the reason I love your program. This is the reason is I didn't have to do much. I just have to stay in my lane and just follow the directions and not worry about it because I had this unknown belief in my mind that this will happen because I started seeing wins right after I told you about 10, 12 days. That my first win was her responding back to me was a light of hope. And for anybody, no matter how bad it is, women, men first do and then feel it, and women first feel it and then do it. So until that feeling is triggered, which by doing the steps you have mentioned, it will trigger it because my wife is very slow to respond on anything. If she can respond, I mean, her next stage was what? She would have moved out,
Yeah.
found a boyfriend, and just moved on in her life.
Yeah.
I probably caught it in the early, because if I waited for 6 or 7 months or 5 months, it would have been I would have been in the probably more worse conditions.
Yeah.
So
It would have still been
I
salvageable if she wasn't married, but yeah, you 100% were headed for worse conditions because she was already game planning when you guys were going to tell the kids.
she was gonna go. Yes, she had
Speaking of
already mindset.
she was out. She was out. Like your marriage was done when I met you. Let me ask you this. Now that your marriage is fully restored, has the program changed other relationships outside of your wife?
Yes, it has. My work. I have been. Uh, I've been acknowledged by my boss. I have been acknowledged by coworkers. I'm much more happier.
Okay.
Uh, I try. I try not to sometime, but I am just smiling because I trained myself to smile, and my patients, because I'm a pharmacist. As I'm walking down the aisle, I'm just smiling, and they start asking me questions, and they feel more. My workers feel more comfortable around me. So work has definitely been good. My personal relationship with my kids have gone way high. They are much more closer. I was very strict father before. I
Okay.
was very, and it has milded me. I'm very kind, mild, understanding. I listen to their problem instead of yelling and uh, reprimanding them. I listen to them now, and they feel like I am hearing to their problems. So yes, it has affected me in my entire life. I am much more calm and peaceful inside. This is the outcome after 9 months here, and I'm honestly telling you today that I'm feeling much more. You're making me emotional now. I'm much more happier,
I'm getting
much
emotional
more kind.
because it's a beautiful thing to see this.
Yeah. So I promised to myself I'm not gonna get emotional here, but I can't help it. It's touching my heart now. I couldn't have thought that I would come to this stage. Same conversation. I still remember day one. I'm so panicked and I'm so worried that if it can be ever be done, if it can ever be restored. And here I am. Uh,
Living proof.
that I yeah, I'm a living proof now. Yes.
All right. One last question and then I'll shut up. What would your wife tell other men about this program who's in the marriage that you were in?
Okay, so here's the funny part. I forgot to tell you that my wife told two of her best friends that Amjad is doing a program, or AJ. She calls AJ to other people too because it's hard to for people to understand my name.
Yeah.
That he's he's getting coaching, and I don't know what he's doing, but he's much more uh, uh, tolerable to things now. He is very encouraging. She encouraged. And then while she was telling, my older son was with her at one of them, and he told me. He said, "Mom was bragging about you at her friend's house, one of her friend's house."
Ooh,
And
don't you
that
love
was
that?
something. Yeah, and that gives you this boost. You cannot even imagine. None of the drugs can give you that boost.
That's a form of something I always say in the YouTube videos when I'm doing a teaching. When you stop defending yourself, your wife will show up and be your biggest advocate and defense party of anybody in the world. And while it doesn't sound like in those examples she was defending you, but at the same time, she was defending your honor. She was building her. The Bible says the good wife will build her husband up at the city gate. Your wife's doing that.
She is,
That
she
means
is,
that's
and
confirming you have a great wife. So congratulations.
I do. The whole reason I went after this whole thing to fight for it is because she is an amazing woman. I love
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
I
I love
always
it.
loved her.
I love it. I met you and you wanted to fight for it, and I said, no, I'm going to teach you how to not fight for it. We're going to put on your tie because in this program, I'm wearing my tie. This is easy. There's no fight.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Go fight at the gym, but here, no, it's just easy. All right, AJ, listen, I appreciate you showing up and being vulnerable enough to share your story with everybody here on YouTube. I can't even imagine how many hundreds and hundreds of men that this is going to encourage and give them hope that they've lost, to know that no matter the situation, if they're facing an unwanted divorce or separation forever, even if she's living with another man, no matter what she's saying, she's made up her mind. She's filed the divorce. She's filed the restraining order, whatever the case is, that you've seen evidence with the other students and in your own marriage that not only did this transform you by the renewing of your mind, but it leveled up you in your job, the intimacy with your children, but you are responsible for leading your wife to blossom into becoming the best version of herself, which is also in her best interest. So you are living proof that that statement, if you love her, let her go, it's such foolish bullshit and detrimental to the woman of any man that believes that. So thank you for being vulnerable enough to come and share this. Thank you for serving your brothers. This is truly what it means to iron sharpens iron. Anything else
I
in
agree.
closing?
No, thank you very much, Denver. I really, really owe you for this. I don't know how to thank you. It's been an amazing journey. It's not going to stop here, but I am very, very thankful to you that God has led me to you so that you could help me get out of this. Otherwise, I don't know where would I be. Probably living separate with divorce, not being able to see my kids,
Yeah.
going through depression, all that. So I am thankful to you, and I am telling whoever is listening to this that this program does work. If it didn't, I wouldn't be here. And
All
it's a
right.
living. I'm the living proof. So thank you.
It's truly, 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 and I think you know that I mean that when I say it has been and continues to be my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. All right, my friend. If you need anything, stay in touch. Outside of that, I look forward to see where this continues to go.
All right, sir. Appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right. My pleasure. Have a good day. You're welcome.
You too.